In this video, I'm going to be discussing two new features in image extract. That is the refine hair feature and the auto edge color fix feature. Now with this image, I've got both of these applied and you can see that it looks really good. If I undo the auto edge color fix layer in particular, you can really see the effect of that, and that has corrected the white spill in that image. Now before I get started, I just want to set the expectation so it's 100% clear that this is not something you're going to be able just to turn on, batch 1,000 images, walk away, and expect everything to be perfect. And the reason why is because image extract works with Adobe's Select Subject tool. And that tool, it works on an AI-based mask creation, and it's not 100% perfect yet. I really built image extract with the idea that one day Adobe's Select Subject would be on par with the image extraction services, the pay-per extraction services that is, and it's not there yet. So the options were to either put the plugin on ice, waiting for Select Subject to be at that level, or just release it as is, and then knowing that it's going to work for certain types of images better than others. So just keep that in mind. And as Select Subject improves, this will improve. But for the images that need touched up, there's nothing I can do to make this plugin work any better. You're just going to have to touch those images up. All right, so for this demonstration, I'm going to be showing you 3 images, one that works pretty well, and that's this image, and 2 that don't, so I can show you what you can expect at times. But to get started, I'm just going to discuss what these 2 adjustments are doing, because they're actually quite different in their roles. The refine hair, what that is doing is that is setting the transparency mask for the edges of the hair. That's refining actually how the transparency is being applied to your image. So that's working on this layer mask here. The edge color fix has nothing at all to do with the transparency. It is adding this layer that corrects the color for the edge of those hairs and the edge of the whole image for that matter. So what image extract does is it runs Select Subject. So if you have the refine hair off, you're just going to see the mask exactly as Select Subject creates it. If you have either of the other 2 refine hair options on, what image extract does is it goes into your mask and it runs a selected mask, and it uses this refine hair button here. And if you have it on full, it's going to use that refine hair as is. If you have it on edges only, it's only going to use the edges of that refine hair. So I've got in my history 3 examples here. So this is with the edge hair refinement off. And you can see Select Subject actually does a pretty decent job with the hair because it runs its own hair refinement. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not as good, but it does run a hair refinement. Now with the full, that's if you had this set to full here. I've got a history state I made for that. You can see the effects of this. This is run the edge hair refinement, and you can see what the edge hair refinement did is it tried to refine the hairs, but it kind of encroached into the hairline in some places more than we wanted. And that's what this edges only mode does. That mode will run the refine hair mask, but it only allows it to replace the mask within a certain distance from the edge. I've got another example image that I'll show you in a minute that explains that. So this refine hair, all that does is sets the transparency mask. Now this edge color fix, if you have this off, it's going to still add this layer, but it will uncheck it, so it's not using it. But if you decide you want it after you've extracted and you had that off, you can just check that on. The opacity is simply the opacity of the layer. So in the layer, you could set anywhere from 0 to 100% opacity and get a different amount of blending with that. And by default, it sets it at 70 because sometimes at 100 it can be too flat on the colors, but you may need 100 to fully correct for the white fringe. So that's up to you for your images. But for example, if I set that, let's set it to 80%, I'm going to leave it off. I'll put it in edges only mode and hit remove background. So you can see that I had it off, so it left that layer off. If I go to that layer, you see it's set to 80% opacity. So if I turn that on, that layer will be on. If I have this checked, let's move this to 75% and hit remove background. So now you see that when it removed it, it put the layer on and it put it to 75%. So it's pretty basic how it works. And when you batch, if you go to your batch processing, you have all of the same adjustments, but just be aware that when you make changes to your adjustments in the single extraction, that does not update your batch settings. You'll have to, when you go to batch, set your settings, and there's reasons why I have it programmed this way. I'll explain when I get to the batching video, but you just set your settings here and run the batch, and it's going to apply those settings in batch. Now I'm going to go to another image here. Let's just put these at the defaults and hit remove background. Oh, and by the way, I'm using the mask checker plugin, so when we see blue, that's actually transparency. And I recommend this plugin because it makes it easy to see flaws in your image, because if you just look at it on a checkerboard pattern and all these little pieces of white showing through, you really can't tell if that is the background showing through, or if that's part of the checkerboard, or if it's not been extracted. But with the mask checker plugin, that makes it really easy. So if I just click on a couple colors here, you can see that there's obvious bits and pieces of white in the hair. So let's put this on the magenta. It makes it a little bit easier to see. So this was with the refined hair edges only. Let me make a history state so we can compare the difference. I'll just call this edges only. All right, now I'm going to re-extract, but I'm going to set this to full. Okay, so now you see a lot of that white is gone. But what the full mode, I mean, it didn't even get all the way in, but what the full mode can do is you can see that now we've got this magenta showing through all of the hair. And that is why the refined hair mode is set to edges only by default, because in Photoshop, with the selected mask refined hair feature, what we're looking at here is the effect of running that refined hair mask feature. And when you use the full mode, it just uses it as is. Whereas if you use the edges only, the image extract plugin only will apply that to the very edges of the hair, if that makes sense. But you can see in this case, depending on the background color, I mean, it may not be as noticeable, but against something like the magenta here, you can really see where it's over erased that hair. And then it's not even went all the way in. And the reason why it's really difficult to make a white screen extraction is because I can't simply program an algorithm to extract white. Well, I could, but what's going to happen if you tell this program to just extract white color, it's going to come in here and take off the whites in the eyes. It's going to take off anything in the teeth here that have the, the white reflections. In the glasses, you see we've got white there. If somebody's wearing a sports uniform with white numbers, it'll remove that. So that's why for me to create a white or gray screen, or for anybody to create that in Photoshop, it's really the only way is through the AI with the select subject. And by doing it, there's really only one way to create this, and that's with select subject and refine hair. So just know that you are limited by Photoshop's limitations with those features, and there's nothing I can do to make this hair do better, and you'll have to touch some of these up. So we'll move on to the next image. I'm going to show you one on dark gray here, and we'll leave this at the default settings again. And you see in this case it did pretty okay except for one area. And this is with it off. Let's turn it on full just to see what happens. I'm curious here. Okay, so the full mode didn't even find this as part of the hair. So select subject, just see in the full mode too. This is another example. You see this magenta showing through the hairline. That's why I built in this edges only hair mode. That's to correct, because it's going to auto fill in for where the refined hair automatically erases areas. I know Adobe's algorithm is pretty aggressive to erase hair. So if we look at, here was the refined hair full mode. Here is the refined hair edges only mode. So for that reason, edges only is the default. But you may need to come into your mask at times and go use some of your brush tools to clean up your mask. So that is just some of the limitations of this. Oh, too, I will show you something else. This edge color fix layer, while it can do good in the hair at times, it can also leave some unwanted color fringing around other parts of your image, like on the ears, for example. So if you come into this mask and take a black brush, actually, I take that back. That is actually the color of the gray spill on the ears. That wasn't created by this mask. But I do want to show you this anyway. So if we come to, let's say there's a part of your image, let's say that you didn't want the edge color fix on, you can go into that mask and take a black brush. Let's move it to a different color here. So I've got a black brush in the edge color fix layer mask, and I'm painting that effect off. So if it causes any color artifacting somewhere where you don't want it, this is where you would paint off that color artifacting. So that about covers it. I'm hoping someday in the future that this select subject will make perfect layer mask here, because as soon as that can do that for all of your images, all this other stuff is going to work even better, because the edge color fix will then be applied properly to the edges as it should, and you won't get that bleed through. I don't know where Adobe's at on that. I don't know if it's even on their priority list to make select subject better. I don't work for Adobe, but I do know that image extract is as good as I can make it. These layers are in place here, just waiting for Adobe's select subject to be good enough for you to batch this. So I'm just hoping someday in the future it is. But until then, this is going to work for a lot of your images. So try it out. Let me know what you think. But just know that I can't improve this any more than it is. So thanks for watching.